1964. 1964 was the 100th anniversary of the creation of Montana, when the boundaries were defined and the name was given. The Montana Centennial Train, a rolling museum, launched on February 21st in Helena and stopped in 20 towns within Montana and 16 cities beyond the borders, reaching New York in time for Montana Day at the World's Fair on April 24th. Each locality in Montana had special festivities that summer, and the grandest of these was the reenactment of the Battle of the Little Bighorn. They really pulled out the stops. Major General R.C. Kendall, Adjutant General of the Montana National Guard, himself acted the part of George Armstrong Custer. Jesuit priest John Murray, pastor of St. Joseph's in Hardin, portrayed Belgian Jesuit Pierre de Smet, the first Catholic priest to set foot in Montana. Joe Medicine Crow wrote the script. In the pageant, he portrayed Chief Fourhorns, but in real life, he was the step-grandson of White Man Runs Him, one of Custer's Crow Scouts, a survivor of the battle. In the pageant, George Old Elk Jr. portrayed Crazy Horse, but in real life, he was the maternal grandson of Curly, another of Custer's Crow Scouts, a survivor of the battle. In the pageant, Dr. Philip Beaumont portrayed Red Cloud, but in real life, he was the grandnephew of the last great Crow chief, Plenty Coups. In the pageant, Henry Old Coyote portrayed Sitting Bull, but in real life, he was a grandson of Old Coyote, a Crow enlisted in the U.S. Cavalry who was wounded at the Battle of the Rosebud. So among the cast, we had an actual serving general, a real Jesuit priest, and descendants of battle survivors. How much more authentic could we get? I say we because we, the Panessa family of Bighorn, actually went to Crow Agency to see the last of the 4 performances. This family group was the first picture taken with the camera I got at Christmas. June that year was a very wet month in the Bighorn Basin, and the river seriously flooded. I took this picture from the new interstate bridge looking downstream toward the old Highway 10 bridge. As a result of all the moisture, the battle site would prove much muddier in 1964 than it was in 1876. I bought my first roll of color film for use on the day itself, Sunday, July 5th. At 4 in the afternoon, the sun was peeking in and out between the clouds. Crow-style teepees, all in white with no decoration, stood out well against the landscape. Authentic Crow riders with their fluid technique wowed the audience as they swooped past from right to left. A little stockade stood to the left, representing Fort Laramie, where major treaties had been signed. The little puff of smoke in the background marked the site of Custer's last stand. My camera's eye was attracted, however, to a horseman stationed in front of the audience. I supposed he was there for crowd control to keep enthusiastic children from getting into the horse's way. Of course, I had no idea who that rider was. 50 years later, however, when I went to Hardin as pastor myself, one day I asked a tribal member if he knew the horseman. Right away, he identified him as an Old Crow because of the 4-arrow design on the wristband. Owen Old Crow, he thought. Recently, I looked up that family and found that the man on the horse was too old to have been Owen himself. Instead, it must have been his father, Simon Old Crow. Simon died in 1971 and no doubt bequeathed the regalia to his son Owen. I am glad to know the man in the picture finally after 60 years of searching. The 1964 reenactment was such a success that similar pageants have taken place regularly ever since. If you have been to one, please tell us about it in the comment section below. We'd love to hear about it. See you next time for yet another Montana memory.